Well, good morning. Oh, that was sad. Good morning. Two questions and then a story, if I might. First question. What kind of leader do you admire? What kind of leader do you look at and say, I'd like to be more like that. I aspire to become that. What kind of leader do you admire? The second question follows suit. What kind of leader do I want to become? What kind of leader do I want to be? And that's going to be the topic of our conversation this morning. But here's a story. Maybe you've heard this one before, but the story of a man in a hot air balloon. And he's traveling to a destination where he's supposed to meet up with a friend of his, and they're going to take a balloon ride together. This is sort of the maiden voyage, and he's going to go pick up his best friend, and they're going to make a real experience out of it. But before long, this being his maiden voyage, and he's a little green, at the helm of this new machine that he's bought, he finds himself completely disoriented, has no clue where he is. He has lost himself. He can't make sense of the landmarks on the ground. He knows he's off course. He knows he's going to be late, and he's getting more than just a little bit desperate. So he begins to lower the altitude of the balloon to see if he can spot, make sense of, catch a landmark or some sign that's going to point him in the right direction. And he notices a woman taking a walk, and she's by herself in this big field. So he brings the balloon down even lower so that he can just hang over the side and ask for help. And he does that. He says, "Hey, hi, can you help me?" He says, I'm on my way to meet a friend. This is like the first time we're taking my balloon out, but I'm lost. I'm going to be late. I have no idea where I am. Can you help me? Can you tell me where I am? She says, "Of course I can." She says, "You're in a hot air balloon, approximately 30 feet above the ground. You're between 40 and 41 degrees north longitude and about 59 and 60 degrees west longitude." A little frustrated, the guy in the hot air balloon, kind of shakes his head, and he hangs back over the edge of the basket, and he says, "You must be an engineer." And she's like, "That's amazing. How did you know?" "Yeah, I am an engineer." He says, "Well, everything you've told me is technically correct, but I have no idea what to make of your information. And the fact is, I'm still lost. Frankly, you've been no help at all. If anything, all you've done is manage to delay my trip further." Wow. So she looks back up at this guy and says, "Oh, well, you must be in management." And the balloonist hangs over the edge. He goes, "Wow, that's amazing. How did you know?" She says, "Well, you don't know where you are or where you're going. You've risen to where you are due to a large amount of hot air. You made a promise you have no idea how to keep, and you expect people beneath you to solve all your problems. Fact is, you're in exactly the same position as when we first met, but now somehow it's my fault." Leadership is a topic that is both a myth and it's misunderstood. It's the foundation of any successful organization. One of my favorite authors, John Maxwell, says everything rises or falls on leadership. And this week is Small Business Week. We're right across Canada. We're celebrating entrepreneurs. And how many business owners do we have in the room here this morning? You run your own organization. I want to take my hats off to you and honor you for the risks that you took to leave the safety of the JOB and to do something different. To drive our economy, to provide opportunities for countless of Canadians that wouldn't be employed without you. Small business drives about 70 to 80% of the Canadian economy. It's significant. So my hat's off to you as we begin our conversation this morning. I just really have a ton of respect for entrepreneurs. People that are willing, come on. I also want to thank Lynn and her team at TD for inviting us. This is the second year that Rhapsody has had the opportunity to be at this event. And I know many of you, the TD team, your badges give you away. And I told them this morning, as many as I could connect to, that I'm a faithful TD Canada Trust client. I was with Canada Trust back before it merged with TD. How many remember the Johnny Cash machines? Right. The ugly brown and orange and yellow branding, right? Thank God that went away. But both a personal client and a business client, and thanks for the opportunity to be here this morning. When it comes to business ownership, we often think that it means the person who carries all the stress. That's true. The person who takes all the risk. Also true. The person who's got the keys to the front door and who signs the checks. Absolutely. But business ownership is a lot more than all of those things. Business ownership, there's a lot of owners that own a business, but they don't really own their business. Does that make sense? They're not taking responsibility for where they are currently. They're not being held accountable to better results. Leaders that are growing and leading organizations that are thriving and making a difference in the marketplace are led by leaders that are taking responsibility and being accountable. Responsible for their results, good, bad, and ugly, and accountable for their decisions. So when it comes to business ownership, I love this hashtag, just own it. It's about owning where you're at and taking it to a different level. Now, as I speak to you as a leader and about leadership this morning, I want you to understand, be fully aware that this is not a topic that I have mastered. I have had thousands of conversations with business leaders right across North America in many, many different industries. And I have yet to meet one leader who has mastered leadership. Leadership is a journey that I don't think there's ever a final destination. It is a constant evolution, a constant learning process as we become more than we are now so that we can do more than we do now. You're constantly learning, constantly growing, constantly evolving. And so I need you to understand that as I speak to these issues this morning, I'm not speaking to them as someone who's there. I'm on a journey just like you. And together we're trying to get somewhere else. We're trying to go somewhere else. We're trying to become more and accomplish more. Is that okay? So we're all under construction. Is that all right? Turn to somebody on either side. You say, we're all under construction. It's all good. We're in good company. Go ahead. Go ahead. Right? I'm under construction. So are you. You're okay. I'm okay. We're good. Right? All right. Good. Now, at its very core, our business is really, our company is really in the business of transformation. We help transform leaders. We help transform team members. We help transform companies and organizations. That's really what we're about, to come in and affect positive change and support leaders in their journey to building that epic story that they're trying to tell. As a matter of fact, the word Rhapsody, in case you didn't know it, and a little bit of trivia for you this morning, in case somebody walks up to you later today and says, so by the way, what does Rhapsody mean? Highly likely that won't happen, but in case it does. The word Rhapsody means an epic story that is full of twists and turns and unexpected things, but it's still epic in its scale. How many here had dreams when you started in business that it would be a straight shot to success? Right? A lot of folks do, actually. Right? They have an idea, they take the risk, they take the leap, and then they expect it to be a straight shot to their end game. That's not really how it is it? It's more like, right? Like there's all these curveballs that are thrown our way. There's all these things that happen that we could not anticipate. And it's being able to hang in there during those detours and those challenging times and those lean times. Talking to a business owner this morning, he's 2 years in business, and first 6 months, didn't make a sale. No sales, right? There's a lot of folks who wouldn't have the guts to hang in there for 6 months. I remember back in 2011 when I launched into this business full-time. I'd been coaching one way or another most of my adult life. But I remember 4 months before I landed my first client. And those were lean months. And before I launched in, I had a lot of people say, Eric, why don't you just go get a job? They meant well, right? They were trying to help me, support me. You ever notice how family tries to oftentimes pull you down to reality and protect you, right? That's their job. They'd like, why don't you just get a job? No, I've got to do this. I've got to launch this business. I've got a heart to help people and make a difference and change lives. Then like 3 months later, I'm like, how am I going to pay the mortgage, Guess I'm eating Kraft dinner again tonight, kids gather around. And I remember those moments of self-doubt, right? Where you're going, I should have got a job. What am I doing? Am I crazy? Am I nuts? I mean, go back to your origin story. Those of you that maybe have been in business longer than, 10 years, or we often lose sight of the sacrifices we made, don't we? We lose sight of the hard times because hopefully they've been replaced by better times. And we want to forget some of that early pain that we went through. But that pain has been part of shaping you and making you who you are today. And I want to encourage you, if you hear nothing else from me here today, is that as a leader, you are called upon to continue to evolve. No matter what stage of your leadership you find yourself in, and I'm going to walk you through a leadership model today that I'm hoping you're going to be able to see exactly where you are in that model. And no matter where you find yourself, how do I take steps to continue to grow and continue to evolve for the sake of my own journey, for the sake of my family, for the sake of my team, for the sake of my customers? How do I continue to become more than I am right now? Does that make sense? Yeah? All right. Yes, sir.
White cat.
White cat. It's unfortunately, yeah. I'm actually a dog guy, so this is... it's not showing very well because the sun's hitting the screen, but behind me, if you can look, that's actually a lion. Yeah, you'd see it better on my computer screen, but unfortunately, the natural light is dimming out. Great question. Thank you for catching that. Why the hell a cat? I'm not a cat guy. Any cat people in the room? All right, you can stay.
You're more sophisticated.
Touche. Dogs are just dumb and lovable, right? All right. Let's keep going. At Rhapsody, our mission is to build the most sophisticated leaders who change the face of business. And I'm going to help unpack that this morning. This is why we get out of bed every day. It's not just about, although it's important for us to help an organization function better, increase their bottom line, be more profitable, be more efficient, build more engaged teams that don't phone it in but show up to work every day wanting to make a difference, helping leaders grow, helping troubleshoot marketing issues and HR problems and sales issues. I mean, we do all that stuff. All that, what we call tactical stuff, right? The tactical stuff that any business, if they can't get their head around those issues, they're going to struggle. We actually refer to that as the architecture of business, right? But what I want to talk to you today is less about architecture and more about artistry. How many here know Da Vinci? Right? He's like the patron saint at Rhapsody. We've got, if you've been to our office, there's like Da Vinci stuff everywhere. And the reason we like Da Vinci is because he is an individual, one of the few in history, who was able to embrace architecture and artistry in the same brain. This is a guy that would draw flying machines and come up with these amazing blueprints for machinery and inventions that he couldn't build in his day because they didn't have the technology, but in many cases, years later, people were able to build them and demonstrate they actually worked. This guy had like the mind of an engineer, and yet at the same time, an incredible artist who could create these beautiful works of art. I mean, you don't often see that. It's usually you're going to be right brain or you're going to be left brain, you're going to be artistic, or you're going to be more like the details person. This guy embraced both. And it's our contention that at the very core of becoming a sophisticated leader is embracing both the architecture and the artistry of business, right? Architecture is all those fundamentals that I mentioned just a few moments ago. Artistry is about leadership. It's about vision. It's about passion. It's about communication. It's about how to resolve conflict. It's about innovation and doing things differently. It's not about just running a successful box, right? It's about building something that matters and makes a difference in the marketplace, that influences change in people's lives, in terms of employees and clients, and even becomes to shape the thinking in the industry that you belong to. That's true artistry and so this is why we exist. This is really at the core, beyond all the tactical stuff. If we can help leaders become more sophisticated, the tactical stuff in many cases will take care of itself, right? But the other stuff will not evolve unless it's encouraged to, okay? So in order to encourage that, we have a lot of dangerous conversations at Rhapsody with our clients, with each other. And dangerous conversations are not dangerous to you or to the people involved, but they are dangerous to status quo. They are dangerous to average. They're very dangerous, but we've always done it this way, right? They're dangerous to just doing the same old, expecting a different result. They're dangerous in that they're going to reset how one looks at a situation and help them reframe it and perhaps approach it in a way that they had never even imagined. And so today will be a bit of a dangerous conversation for you because I'm going to challenge some leadership stuff, if that's all right. And hopefully you'll still want to buy me coffee afterwards. Is that okay? Can I offend you and then you still buy me coffee? Is that okay? Some are like, no, I'm not even sure I like you yet. I'm not even buying you a coffee now, never mind later. All right, so dangerous conversations. Let me walk you through the model and explain it to you as best I can. It's a simple model, really. Everyone starts as an emerging leader. The next stage they must evolve into is the accomplishing leader stage. From there, hopefully one becomes an empowering leader, and I'll say right away that most never evolve beyond the second stage. Most leaders get stuck at accomplishing. Okay, I'll unpack that for you later. You become an empowering leader, and then ultimately into a sophisticated leader. So let me break it down stage by stage, and let's start with the emerging leader. The emerging leader is that leader who's just been promoted into a new role of leadership. They've gone from being a tactician to now a manager. They've gone from being, oh my God, do I ever see this in real estate sales? You guys need to stop doing this. Right? We got some real estate people here. Hear me. Stop promoting your best salespeople to management. Unless you're going to train them, right? And we see not just in real estate, we see it in so many different industries. We take our best people on the front lines and we elevate them to a role of leadership and often do not provide them, what? The support, the training that they need, because it's a radically different skill set to play on the ice as it is to now sit on the bench and help others play a really powerful game. Think Wayne Gretzky, right? One of the greats when he was on the ice. Behind the bench, right? Not so much. Very different skill set. But the emerging leader is that new leader coming into that role for the first time, or in some cases, an experienced leader who's taking over an existing team. They all go back. It kind of resets when you're brand new. You go to emerging immediately. Some of the characteristics you'll notice in an emerging leader is their level of contribution. This is somebody on your team that is contributing tremendously in their particular role as a technician or frontline worker. They're kind of excelling above the norm, above average, okay? And that's often why we start to pay closer attention to them. Their commitment level is above that of, again, their peers. They're committed to their work. They're committed to the organization. They even show tremendous commitment to the leadership in terms of their support. And again, that's why they start to get noticed, right? Because they're doing that. Their influence is growing. How many here know that there are leaders with titles, and then there are leaders, period? And in many organizations, there are unnamed leaders that are the key influencers. And often they exert more influence than the folks who have an actual title, all right? But they have influence. People look to them for what their thoughts are on a particular issue. They go to them with problems within the business when they're struggling. Perhaps having a problem with management or the owner, and they don't know where to go or who to talk to in a safe way. So they go to these people of influence. So an emerging leader is someone who has that gathering type effect. They have influence. I'm not talking about the person who attracts all the local gossip. That's different. Okay? That type of person feeds those fires and causes additional problems. Somebody comes to them and they're on fire and they throw gas on it instead of water. Okay? A leader will try to help that person navigate that effectively for the good of, for their own sake and for the good of the organization. Okay? You'll notice a real willingness to step up in these emerging leaders. You ever notice in an organization, if you want something done, who do you ask? The busiest person in your organization. Why? Because they're already getting stuff done. Right? They're moving, man. There's momentum there. So they're always willing to step up. And oftentimes, later on, this can really bite them, you know where, because they're taking on more than they can handle. It can really hurt them later on in their leadership journey. And of course, they have they're like sponges. They embrace what I call the learner mindset. They may not be avid readers. You don't have to be a reader to be a learner. I know some folks that are incredible learners. They just absorb everything that's going around them, and they take it in, and they're able to apply it immediately. They're always looking for something else to add to their toolkit. Does that make sense? How many know some people like this? Have you noticed people like this on your team? Isn't this like the ideal employee? In many ways, I mean, it's not exhaustive, but wouldn't you like to have more team players that exhibited more of these qualities, right? Well, these are the ones that naturally will begin to emerge in our organizations as potential leaders. Some of the challenges, though, at this level, is that these leaders will have typically a tremendous amount of insecurity. They've never done this before. They're in this role for the first time. Can you remember your first job? How many here can remember your first job? Help me out here. Use your imagination. Yeah, you remember it? Okay. Now, how many of you remember you didn't know what you were doing? Perhaps there was a steep learning curve. What was the feeling you experienced? Anxiety. Pardon my French. Holy shit, right? A bit of that going on, like overwhelm, frustration. There's all these fears that are happening. Why? Because you were in a situation where you didn't know what you were doing. This is the experience every time you promote someone within your organization. From frontline worker to manager, this is what's going on. They may put on a happy face, and be glad for the promotion, but internally there's a tremendous amount of angst happening because you have just promoted them to their own level of incompetence. Not because they're not capable, they just haven't done this before. It's not in their wheelhouse yet. Very capable technician, brand new leader. Tremendous amount of anxiety, okay? Credibility. Try to remember the first time you were promoted to an area where you were now managing others. And especially if you were one of their peers and now you got elevated as a leader, right? What was the reaction of your peers? Right? Who do they think they are? They can't even do the job. I would have been a better manager than them. Right? You've got, in the eyes of your team, you're not credible yet. They're not sure you can do the job. And it's fair. That's a fair assumption. So there's a major credibility gap for these emerging leaders, okay? Competence is an issue, and I've spoken to that already. Competent technicians, but not competent leaders yet, because they just don't have the track record. They haven't gotten the training. And by the way, in far too many organizations, we have dealt with hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of organizations, everything from the single owner operator type company to medium-sized business, right up to Fortune 500. Only in the Fortune 500 space do we see deliberate training and mentoring taking place. In the world of medium to small business, it's very rare, if not like practically non-existent. So people are left to kind of fend for themselves. They're promoted without the training. So competence is a problem. Communication. How you communicate as a frontline worker and how you need to learn to communicate now as a manager, as a leader is very, very different. You're not just communicating about tasks and activities. You're communicating about, outcomes and budgets and rallying a team together to accomplish a shared goal. Very, very, very different animal. And finally, there's the major challenge can be around boundaries and focus. Because as an emerging leader is trying to find their sea legs, so to speak, from a leadership perspective, they're still a frontline worker often. So they keep going back to what they're comfortable with, and boundaries become a problem. Focus becomes an issue. And they find themselves pulled back and forth from what they used to do to what they're supposed to be doing now. So they can really struggle. In most organizations, they say, it takes up to a year for a new leader to find their legs. That's really sad. How many here can afford, let's say you needed a leader in your organization, can you afford that person to take a year before they get up to speed? How fast do you need them to be up and running? Yeah, right, because whenever you hire, it's because you're in need. Right? Like you're growing, you need someone in there. You can't afford that lag, right? So understand where your new leaders are coming from and then support them accordingly. Do what is necessary to get them where they need to be. Their primary growth priorities, if you're working with emerging leaders, okay, you want to focus on helping them learn the ropes of management and leadership as fast as possible. Have an onboarding program of some sort. How do we lead around here? Not how do we do what you used to do every day. By the way, if at the end of the presentation, later on, if you want this slide deck, just give me your business card. We'll email it to you. So you don't have to worry about taking pictures. Feel free to do that too, but we can get it in your hands. Teach them as fast as you can. How do we do things around here from a leadership perspective? Help them build their credibility. We don't have time to unpack that one in its entirety today, but there's something about a leader transferring not just responsibilities, but trust. Delegating not just tasks, but power and authority, so that that new leader can get their credibility faster, all right, in the eyes of their peers. Help them learn to ask better questions and to listen deeply to the team that they're leading. Before they go in there and try to make all kinds of crazy changes, because that's another extreme. There's the really anxious leader who's afraid to do anything, and then there's the arrogant new leader who's going to change everything overnight, right? And that causes all kinds of conflict and problems. So teach them to ask better questions, to listen more deeply. In today's day and age in business, it used to be the person with the most knowledge wins, right? Business is changing so fast. We were just talking about that at the table this morning. With the advancement of technology, where things are going online and mobile, and not just robotics, but artificial intelligence, and how that's going to change the face of business. Listen, things are moving so quickly and so fast. It's the person who asks the better questions today that will win. Because the person who has all the answers has lost their curiosity. Does that make sense? And if you've lost your curiosity, you're not paying attention to what the market's doing, and then you end up like Blockbuster Video. Right? They weren't paying attention. Somebody else was. So are you paying attention? But teach them to do that. Teach them how to build coalitions. That's what they need to do in those early stages, especially in a larger organization. Build coalitions of other key leaders within the organization. Build allies. right, that will help them, again, rise faster and come to a confidence level faster and help them establish quick wins. There's nothing that will help a new leader gain the respect of their team than a few quick wins right out of the gate. So set them up to succeed. Set them up to do that right from the get-go. Does that make sense? Emerging leader. Everyone say emerging leader. Emerging. Try it again. Let's all together now. This is like Sunday school almost. Emerging leader. Emerging. Much better. Okay. Let's keep moving. Let's talk about the accomplishing leader. This one is the stage that many get stuck at, but the accomplishing leader is defined as the leader who has done all the things that I've talked about at the previous stage. They built those coalitions. They asked great questions. They listened to their new team. They got some quick wins, right? They built up their credibility. They got the support they needed. And now, man, it's like momentum starts to kick in. Now we start seeing results coming in from this leader and their team. They're accomplishing stuff. How many here have ever been part of a team that was like, felt like it was in a coma in terms of productivity and efficiency? It's like it wasn't going anywhere. And how many have been part of a team that's really on the move? What's the difference? What's it like showing up to work in the morning? Energy, right? Like the other team, you barely can drag yourself out of bed. The other team, you can't wait to get to work because things are happening. Cool things are happening in the organization because this accomplishing leader is moving things forward. It's an incredible phase. You see some characteristics, a growing sense of confidence, right? Because they're getting the wind in their sails and they're getting their sea legs and they're feeling more confident in their decision making. Increasing competence as a leader as they're learning how to manage a team and how to communicate differently and how to work on group outcomes instead of just personal achievement. So all these things begin to weigh into that. Their influence is expanding now. Not just sometimes within their own team, that's where it starts, but if they're accomplishing, if their team's got momentum, they start to get influence now where else? Within the larger organization. People start noticing, paying attention and saying, whoa, something's going on there. What's up with so-and-so? Didn't they just start like 6 months ago? Right? And they have an expanding sense of influence. Really focused on results, the accomplishing leader. It's all about the outcomes. And that doesn't mean at the expense of people, but their focus is really on getting things done. And that's why leaders really embrace the accomplishing leaders, because they help them achieve their goals and dreams. And the accomplishing leader is also the type, really, I mean, if the emerging leader was willing to contribute, willing to pitch in and go, the accomplishing leader will go above and beyond. They are committed. They will show up early. They will go home late. They will work weekends. They will do whatever it takes, right? Because it's all about winning. It's all about getting it done. It's all about, this is so much fun. And it's so exciting to be a part of. And that's exactly why most leaders get stuck here. But some of the challenges of being at this level, as exciting as it is that people start falling into the ego trap. You started as one who felt anxious, nervous, second-guessing yourself a lot. And it's not that goes away completely at this stage, but the momentum and the results start to play some mind games with you. And people start to believe their own press. And people start to get addicted to the accolades. They like being the center of attention, right? At this level of leadership, you've not really built your team yet. You've set them free to perform, but you really haven't established them as leaders in the making. At the accomplishment level, it's more like star and supporting cast. With the leader very much the center of attention, decision-making, action, and the rewards of it as well. Okay? The ego trap becomes really, really challenging for a lot of people here. For some, it's very overt. For others, it's incredibly subtle. But there is something about the human psyche where we like to be needed. Yes? We like people to recognize us. Yes? No? Nobody here? You've read about people like this, perhaps? You YouTubed it last night and you were feeling badly for these types of individuals? Right? Don't we? I mean, there's something that it feels good to be at the center of attention. It feels good to be at the center of something cool that's happening. It strokes our ego. And there's nothing wrong, inherently wrong with that. It's, are we channeling that in the right direction? So the ego trap is where a lot of folks get stuck. And because they get stuck there, it's not long before these leaders now are stuck in overwhelm. Star and supporting cast. Where does everything have to go through? The star. right? Every decision, every action, every direction, everything that happens. And this is not, I'm not talking about micromanagement here. All right? There is some of that plays into this. It's bigger than that. You're the center. You're the center of the hub. And this is where leaders, and I see business owners more than anyone, stuck at this accomplishing stage of business, and they're working longer. You know, the entrepreneurial dream, right? You're good at a skill or a trade or a service of some sort. You've got some great value. And one day, over time, you got tired of making money for the man, right? And you thought, I know, I'll start my own business, right? I'll make more money, I'll have more free time, and be more in control of my destiny. Fast forward 3 years later, you're making less money than your employees, you're working longer hours, and your life's out of control. Right? That's the story of most Canadian entrepreneurs. That's the story. You know, I would bet to say that in a room this size, that's the vast majority of you here. Okay? And there's no judgment in that. That's just the reality. Problem is, perhaps there's too much of this going on. I'm not talking about ego, but perhaps you haven't learned how to let go and empower your team so that you can do what you do best and get away from all that frontline work that's killing you. Right? And it's not your pure genius. Overwhelm is where so many leaders are trapped, both in organizations and as business leaders. Codependency. This develops where now your people, because of the star and supporting cast syndrome playing itself out, they don't ever rise to their full level of potential because they don't need to, right? Because you step in. Like the star saves the day. The star is the one that solves all the problems. The star is the one who's got all the answers. They're the one that management looks at and says, they're a star. And they feed into that. And what happens is the team doesn't develop, the leader doesn't quite develop the way they need to, and they're really in a really kind of weird, twisted way, they're codependent on each other for that relationship to continue. The cycle has to be broken if that leader is going to go to the next level. Team stagnation is a natural outcome if a leader is at this stage too long. This stage is not bad, folks. It's a necessary evolution. All of them are necessary evolutions. The key is you don't want to stay here. Because the longer a team stays at the stage where there's a star and supporting cast effect taking place, the quicker that team will stagnate and other great people will move on to other careers or move on to other teams because they fail to be able to recognize any potential for themselves other than their current role on this team. And no matter how much you may adore your boss, right? Or really enjoy working with an individual, if you feel like you're being capped and there's no potential, after a while, people move on. It's been said that people don't quit jobs, they quit leaders. Right? And they'll tell you all kinds of other reasons why they're leaving, but most of the time it's a leadership problem. All right? And the person's just not being able to live that out. And then the leader's evolution, just like the team stagnates, the leader's evolution stagnates. Does that make sense? And they get stuck now in this phase. It's a really unhealthy dynamic. Growth priorities for someone who's at this stage. If you find yourself at this stage, if you resonate with any of this, all right, number one, humility. I'm not saying you're arrogant, right? Because for a lot of us, this stuff is very subtle. It's not, I need to be star and supporting cast. But you need to learn to let go, right? And letting go requires humility. Letting go requires a little bit of faith that there's other people on my team that'll catch the ball when I drop it so that I can focus on what matters most. Humility can look all kinds of different ways. It's not about being meek and mild. That's one expression of it. But it's more about recognizing one's limitations and being honest with oneself about the gaps that need to be filled. Okay? And that no one person can do it all. That's the second one, honesty. It's that honest look in the mirror to say, I can't do it anymore. What's funny is most of us probably tell ourselves that at some level, I can't do it all by myself, and yet we put on our Superman shirt every day, and we go ahead and try to do it all ourselves anyway. Right? So it's that humility, that honesty to say, I need my team to rise up, I need to empower them to take on the responsibilities that are really slowing me down and are crippling my company, crippling my department, so that I can do what matters most in my role, and they can fulfill the rest. Okay, it's having faith in your people. That takes delegation skills. Who here is a master delegator? Yeah, no one. Oh, good for you. Good for you, Fred. Yeah. He just had his first kid. What does he know? Right? Wait till you have like 3. Actually, it's after you've had 2, the third one, you could keep adding them. It doesn't matter because they become their own like Lord of the Flies sort of thing, and they take care of themselves. I tell people I got 5 kids everywhere I go, and the crowd's always torn. Some are like wanting to congratulate me, and the rest of them are like, I'm so sorry. You know. But delegation skills are so important. Most leaders will admit I don't do that well. Right? Because we're thinking of just delegating tasks. We fail to understand the necessity of delegating the necessary power and authority attached to those tasks. Right? And that's a whole other, I could spend all morning just talking about that. But we don't have time. Thinking and building systems. These leaders need to be taught to think and build systems. So that the way, and perhaps in your business, again, in all the conversations I've had with business leaders, systems are never sufficient. They either don't exist, or they're a skeleton of what they should be, and so the full weight of the business falls where? On the weight of the shoulders of the leader, of the owner, when the systems could be doing most of the heavy lifting for you. I get the common complaint I get back, or response I get back is, but Eric, I don't have time to build systems. Right? Like, I don't get paid. Like, that doesn't make me money. Right? And you're right. Not in the short term. But if you don't have time to do it right, you must have time to do it over and over and over. And think about the long-term cost to you and the organization because the systems are not in place to shoulder the load. Leaders need to be taught systems thinking. It is one of the crucial skills that will save you. Right? We were able to last year add 10 coaches to our team without even blinking an eye because of the systems we have in place. Plug and play, 10 new team members, and everything's there to help them succeed. We're constantly evolving and growing our systems so that the weight of the business rests there and not too much on our shoulders. There'll always be a burden to carry as a leader, won't there? But you don't want the wrong burden on your shoulder is the issue, okay? And then team development. This is the key. They need to start to invest in the development of the people around them. And this is tough for a lot of people for many, many reasons. But the only way they'll get to the next level is this team development piece, which takes us to the empowering level.